Here's example 11 with trig identities. So again, if you want a copy of this packet we've been using for these videos, check the video description. There's a link in there, so you can click that link and get this packet. So cotangent of theta plus 1, all divided by tangent of theta plus 1 equals cotangent of theta. Okay, so we want to establish this identity here. So let's go back to our general process from an earlier video. And always start on one side, try to make it look like the other side, and usually start with the side containing the more complicated expression. So the expression on the left is definitely a little more complicated than the expression on the right. So let's go ahead and start with that. So cotangent of theta plus 1 all over tangent of theta plus 1. Okay, so that's what we're going to start with. So there are actually several different ways to approach this. So we can convert everything to cosines and sines. That is one way that'll work. And when we do that, there's actually a couple different ways to go from there. But another way is to look at this and say, okay, where do I want to be? I eventually want to be with cotangent of theta. What do I have? I have ones, whatever. I have a cotangent of theta and I have a tangent of theta. Okay, well, if I want cotangent of theta in the end, let me maybe convert everything into cotangent and see if that helps me at all. So it's kind of a goofy thing to think, and it won't always work in every case, but it will work here. Okay, so it will work here. So we know that cotangent and tangent, they're reciprocals, right? So one of the reciprocal identities, it's actually not written on here specifically, but we know that since cotangent of theta is 1 over tangent of theta, okay, that one actually is written on the paper, but it's also true that tangent of theta is the reciprocal of cotangent. So we talked about this in a much earlier video. Tangent of theta is 1 divided by cotangent of theta. Okay, so this one is written on the paper up here. On this paper from the first page of the packet, cotangent of theta is 1 over tangent of theta. This one is not, but it's also true. Yeah, we talked about that in an earlier video. But this is, in an earlier video we talked about this, but this is what we're going to use. Tangent of theta is 1 over cotangent of theta. That's actually, we can also use this one up here, okay? We can actually use either one of those. We don't want to use both of them, okay? We just want to use one of them. So don't use both, but just one. So, but we're going to use tangent is 1 over cotangent. We're going to use that one because our answer that we eventually want to get is just cotangent. So let's just convert all that to cotangent and see if that helps us. Again, kind of weird and it won't always help us, but in this case it does. Okay, so tangent is 1 over cotangent. Oh, we've got to put our thetas in there too. Okay, so now we have this thing on top, this whole mess on the bottom. So on the bottom, let's get a common denominator here. So 1 over cotangent of theta. Okay, well, first of all, let's always go top down as far as we can. So numerator is still the same, cotangent of theta plus 1. Inside of the big denominator here, let's get a common denominator here. So 1 over cotangent of theta plus 1. So our common denominator is just cotangent of theta. So that's 1 over cotangent of theta plus 1, just multiplied by cotangent over cotangent. So that's cot theta over cot theta. Okay, so we still got that going on. On the top, top is still the same. And then on the bottom we have a common denominator now, so let's squish it all together. So on the top is cotangent of theta plus 1. Okay, and then on the bottom, now if we squish everything together, we're going to have 1 plus cotangent of theta, all divided by cotangent of theta. Okay. Okay, well now that we've squished it all together into one fraction, one quotient like that, now let's come up here and say, okay, well let's rewrite that now. Cotangent of theta plus 1 over 1 plus cotangent of theta over cotangent of theta. Okay, so I didn't actually do anything different here. I just took this and rewrote it, or I wrote it again. So cotangent of theta plus 1 on top, this mess on the bottom, so same exact thing we had down here. Okay, now when you divide by a fraction, that's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So let's take the cotangent of theta plus 1. Okay, now we're going to multiply that by the reciprocal of this fraction down here. So the reciprocal is cotangent on top, and on the bottom is 1 plus cotangent of theta. Okay. Well, hey, 1 plus cotangent of theta, that's the same thing as cotangent of theta plus 1. Okay, if you add two things together, it doesn't matter what order you add them in. So these are exactly the same thing. Cotangent of theta plus 1, 1 plus cotangent of theta, exactly the same. So this one's off to the side, which is the same thing as being on top. So it cancels with the 1 on the bottom. And what we're left with is cotangent of theta. And is that what we wanted? Yes, it's what we wanted. Okay. So that's it for example 11. Okay, again, a few different ways to do it. We're not going to do it another way here, but we could have converted everything to cosines and sines and get common denominators, and there's a couple of different ways to go with that. Or we could have said, okay, well, cotangent is 1 over tangent. So let's do 1 over tangent of theta plus 1, and then leave the bottom alone. Okay, so really it's sort of the same way we did this, but instead of tangent is 1 over cotangent, just use cotangent as 1 over tangent. The rest of it will work out almost the same way, and you'll still end up with the same thing. Okay, you'll still get the same answer here. So anyway, a few different ways to approach this, but that's example 11 with establishing trig identities. Example 12 coming up in the next video.